I think it's one of those. It's just kind of like a little bit of a release, a little bit of a pressure valve that if I'm going and all of a sudden just like. Diz Runs Radio episode 981 starts in 3, 2. Welcome back to Diz Runs Radio, where I talk with runners from all corners of the running world about running, life, and everything in between. I'm your host, Denny Krahe, and it's just about time to head out the door for an easy run and a great conversation. So if you're ready, then I'm ready. Let's get started. Well, here we are. Fall is in the air. September's drawing to a close, and that means it is time for a little listener Q&A. A little you ask, I answer. Maybe with a little bit of luck, one or two answers today will actually be useful. I don't know. No promises, no guarantees. I guess you get what you pay for when you're asking for free advice, right? But here we are, doing the thing. If you're new around here and you haven't kind of put it together yet, this is something we do every month. The last Friday of each month is dedicated to listener questions and my answers, which again, hopefully useful, hopefully a little bit helpful. Although when we get some of the nonsense questions, well, you ask nonsense questions, you get nonsense answers. So, all questions are welcome. No topics off limits for the monthly Q&A episodes. And if you want to be part of asking questions, you can really ask me questions in any form or fashion, social media, email, whatever. But I'm here to tell you that my various inboxes between Facebook inboxes and Twitter DMs and Instagram DMs and definitely Gmail inboxes, dumpster fires, disasters. You send me a question, I'm not going to lose it on purpose, but I'm not going to guarantee that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle somewhere. So if you want to ensure that your questions get answered in whatever monthly Q&A that we might be on, the way to do it is to head over to the Facebook group. Join the Facebook group, dizruns.com/Facebook, or the next time you're on Facebook, just search for the Diz Runs Tribe, click to join, and come in and hang out. Hopefully, enjoy the shenanigans that seem to happen there on a pretty regular basis. But then in the middle of the month, about 10 days before the last Friday, so usually one of the middle Wednesdays of the month, put out a post that says, "Hey, what are your questions this month?" Then you just put your question in the comments. Bada boom, bada bam. It's all of them. Then are in one place. They don't get lost, and we have the questions that devolve into this episode. So that's the way to do it in the Facebook group. Dizruns.com/Facebook directs you right there, and just hang out with us. Have some fun. I like to think it's a good time at least. Save for the fact that it's on Facebook, which isn't exactly my preferred cup of tea. Maybe it is more of a cup of tea as opposed to my preferred cup of coffee. But, it is what it is. The group is pretty great, so come hang out and then, be ready for some questions. So here we go. We got a 20-something, not quite 30 this month, so we'll see. This episode will be somewhere between, like an hour and 20 minutes and like 14 hours. Somewhere in that window is where we'll come in. We'll take it as long as it is required. And the first question comes from Lisa, asks, how far are your short runs? So, Lisa, this is one of those questions that, not that I hate the question, but I hate answering it because it's all relative, right? What's long to me is short to somebody else. What's short to me is like, oh my God, I can't even imagine running that long to somebody else. And I hate to put those type of definitive things out there without some type of long, rambly disclaimer that says that, hey, whatever's long or short for you is fine. It's great. What's long or short to me has no bearing on, hopefully, has no bearing on how you feel about your runs. Just like easy and hard, fast and slow. I am fully aware that a fast run for me is a slow run for somebody else. Probably people in the group, probably people listening right now, my fast is their slow. All right? And I'm also fully aware that in some cases, probably people in the Facebook group, probably some people listening right now, that my slow is their fast. Again, that doesn't make anybody better, worse, whatever. It's all relative. And so I'll answer your question, Lisa. Don't worry, but I just want to make sure that I try to cover my bases as much as possible, that just because a run is what I would consider short for me doesn't mean I would consider that short necessarily for anybody else. So for me, a short run would be probably 2 to 3 miles, something like that, which also is a little bit difficult to answer your question because I don't do very many 2 to 3 mile runs. My daily run, at least my Monday through Friday daily run, for anybody who follows me on Strava or on Instagram, where I tend to post the stats as well. But if you follow me on Strava, you see that I run pretty much the exact same map every single day, Monday through Friday, and it's 6.08 miles. Out my front door, round through my neighborhood, the tour of the neighborhood, and then back to the driveway, hit the stop button, somewhere between 6.06 and 6.09, depending on if I stop it at my driveway or the neighbor's driveway. But that's my daily run. I say all that to say this. I wouldn't consider that a short run for myself just because it's what I do every day. You know, like for me, again, short run, 2-3 miles. Now, for some folks, 6 miles, absolutely. You know, Dylan up in Maryland, he does 15 miles every day. So 6 for him probably would be short, and that's fine. You know, for some folks who you know that don't run as far or don't have as much time or whatever, you know, 6 miles or maybe they mostly run 5K, 10Ks. 6 miles is a Saturday long run. Maybe not even something you get to accept for on race day for a 10K. So, you know, for them, maybe 1 mile is a short run. Maybe 1 mile is an average run. You know, it's all relative. But again, I know I'm kind of belaboring it, but the last thing I want is for somebody to hear this and be like, well, hell, like if he thinks 6 miles is a short run, like what am I? You're a runner. You're a runner, and where you're at right now as far as how far you run is different than where I am. Cool. Not a problem. Not a problem. All right. And there were certainly times in the not too distant past, within certainly less than 5 years, probably 3 years maybe, where like my average daily run was like 3 miles, 3 or 4 miles. And so the idea of running 6 on a random Tuesday morning, like, ooh, that was, I don't know. You know, so it's a sliding scale. All right. But for me right now, where I'm at today, a short run, 2 or 3 miles. That would be considered short for me. Thank you for the question, Lisa. Hopefully I didn't screw up my answer too much to make anybody turn it off, but I appreciate your question. Next couple coming from the heartland, from Ryan, says, what do you consider to be a good run? Or what factor do you hit and say that run was a success? Is it heart rate was good, pace, feel, or just covering the mileage? So, Ryan, that's a great question because I think you point out, or at least what I get from your question is you recognize that there's a lot of factors that go into whether a run is good or bad. And I think that all the ones you mentioned absolutely count, you know? Like the sad thing is that they don't all line up on the same way every day, right? Like some days the heart rate is good and everything just feels good. Hey, that's a good run. You know, some days the heart rate's a little bit of a struggle or the legs don't feel great, but hey, I got the miles in, I'm ticking the box, I'm building my fitness towards my goals. Hey, you know, that still counts as a good run. Some days everything that you mentioned, you know, heart rate, pace, feel, mileage, it's all just kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. But it's a good run because the dog only stopped to use the bathroom once, so I didn't have to stop a couple times to clean up after her. That's a good run. Just being honest, it is. Some days it's a good run because the podcast I pick is perfect. It's interesting to listen to. The duration is perfect, so that you know it covers me for the entirety of my run. I don't have to like stop and pick out what's the next. Like, well, I've got 30 minutes left, so that means I need to pick about an hour long podcast because you all know I listen to my podcasts on 2X. So you know, trying to fit like no. If I can start a podcast when I'm getting ready to walk out the door and it's you know a 2 hour and 12-minute podcast or something like that, it's like perfect. This one's going to cover me the whole way through, and it's going to wrap up just after I walk back in the door. Perfect. Another factor that would be a good run is you know if there happens to be something good to take a picture of for the old scene on the run post, and you know what that's going to be. If there's a toilet on the side of the road, that kind of makes it a good run for the day. So lots of factors that go into a good run, and maybe that's just me somewhat trying to convince myself that like pretty much every run has something good about it. Because you know I'm not going to try to pretend like every run is great. Like it's not. There's plenty of days where it's like ugh, you know. But if I think about it hard enough, I can usually find something good, you know. And some days it takes a little more thought than others, but you know, more often than not, the runs are good in some form or fashion. On a real good day, everything kind of lines up with the heart rate, the pace, the feel, getting the miles, having a toilet, dog only stopping once, good podcast. Like, those days are rare, but they do happen every once in a while. So, lots of ways to do, excuse me, lots of ways to define a good run. So thanks for that question, Ryan. Another one from Ryan. Going to try more Tailwind. What are your flavor recommendations? Because I have no preference when it comes to certain flavors over others. So, well, here's a chance to plug Tailwind, right? Like, as far as affiliate links, if you're going to buy Tailwind, Ryan, or anybody else, and you're not going to get it from, if you can get some stuff from the local running store, hey, I'm cool with that. Support the local guy. If you're going to buy it online and have it sent to your house, I mean, you can get it from Amazon, or you can get it from Tailwind. And if you get it from Tailwind using my link, then I get a little commission. So, not that it's much, like it's literally like $1, but hey, it's $1. I'll take it. It doesn't cost you an extra $1. So dizruns.com/tailwind is the link. And I think if you buy very much, if you buy much at all, you get free shipping. So, you got that as well. So that can kind of counterbalance the Amazon free shipping situation. But as far as, so there we go. Plug in an affiliate link there. I think we got another one coming up in a little bit from another question. We'll see if memory serves. But, when it comes to flavors for Tailwind, I mean, it's, your mileage may vary, because what's good for me may or may not certainly be good for anyone else. I certainly recognize that. I'm a fan of the orange, like the mandarin orange and the lemon lime or lemonade or whatever it's called. The only negative with those two is they don't have caffeine in them. All right, which I mean, a lot of sports drinks don't, but Tailwind does have some flavors that have caffeine. Before I get to those, though, the orange and the lemonade or lemon lime or whatever it's called, real good. And one time when I was running with my double barrel, two bottles of fluids in my Orange Bud pack, I had orange in one bottle, the lemonade in the other. And then, after a certain point, they were about half empty or half full, or however you want to look at it. And so I combined them into the same bottle. That was legit. The orange lemon citrusy blend of Tailwind, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of that combo. So there you go. If you want to get a little bit crazy, a little mad scientist-y, mix up a bottle of both, switch them around, combine them, or mix them on the trail halfway through. Good to go there. As far as the caffeine flavors go, the caffeine ones, to like the non-caffeinated flavors, to me, they're all fine. All right, I like some better than the others, but they're all fine. The caffeine ones are like a lot more hit or miss. Like, some of them are good-ish. As far as fake flavor goes, right? Because let's not kid ourselves, it's all just fake flavor. But the green tea one, I like that. The fruit punch is okay. But some of the other ones just taste too fake for me to handle. But I say all that to say this. I know some people that like absolutely love the cola, or absolutely love the berry buzz or whatever it's called. Those are two that I'm like, ugh. So, maybe the best option is to get a variety pack and try a little bit of each of them, and kind of figure out if there's some that you do end up preferring over others, and then you can just get the ones that you like. I will also put a plug in for the naked flavor, which is supposed to be flavorless. I don't necessarily think it is, but it's a very like low key flavor, and so that's one that you can either mix in with another flavor if you find that they're too intense for you flavor wise, and kind of bring them down a little bit. Or, just kind of, if you want something that's just more or less flavorless, the naked's not bad. I've heard a lot of hate about the naked flavor. I think that's what it's called. It's just flavorless, of course. But I'm a fan of it, to be quite honest. So, again, your mileage may vary. I would say get the variety pack first, and then, kind of narrow down what you like, what you don't like, and then you can just, get those certain flavors as you go. But if you're going to get them, Ryan, dizruns.com/tailwind. Not saying, just saying. Last question from the Heartland, at least till we get to some more Heartland folks down the list. For fun, what actor or actress do you watch their movies or shows, no matter how out of your movie preference it might be? Or maybe a favorite director? Tarantino movies for me. So, at first blush, I was going to be like, yeah, dude, you're right. Tarantino movies, for sure. And then I started to think about it, and I haven't seen a Tarantino movie since Kill Bill 2. So, not that I haven't wanted to. I just, like, in case, those that haven't paid attention over the years, maybe more so even on Friday Fives, but, like, I don't get out much for movies. I don't watch much popular television, really. Still thinking about starting the office, but haven't gotten there yet. So that's like, eventually I get to things theoretically. So I don't really have a good answer, like there's a lot of people I like as far as actresses and actors and even directors or genres. But like nothing that I go out of my way to see. I mean, even pre-pandemic, I don't think I'd been to a movie theater in 5 years. So I guess what am I, 7 years now? Oh, actually I did go see Greatest Showman. My sister and her husband wanted us to go one time and they were in town. And so my parents were babysitting and we went and it was just like, okay, like, eh. So, but whenever that came out, that was like 4 years ago, right? That was the last movie I've seen in the theater. And before that, I think I saw Lincoln was probably the last movie I saw in the theater before that one, which, I mean, when was that? That was 7, 8, 10 years ago? I don't know. So yeah, all that to say, I don't, there's things I like, but I don't tend to go out of my way to watch them even if I want to. So it's a fun question. I'm just not a fun guy. Ha. So I don't have a fun answer for you. I'm sorry. But like I said, at first glance, maybe Tarantino, maybe McConaughey, but again, I haven't seen any of McConaughey's stuff I can't even remember like the last new McConaughey thing that I saw. I know he's been in several movies and I like Maddie Mac a lot. But like not enough to go to a movie. So I don't know. Sorry to let you down, my man. But great questions. Thanks for chiming in, Ryan. Appreciate you. Next couple questions from the Heartland, but a little bit farther south from Hilda. Do you have a pre-race ritual that you have to follow? So this is one of those where I think that I'm going to claim technicalities of the wording choice, Hilda, and say no. But you all know I have my pre-race rituals. You all know that I'm a creature of habit. I love my routines. And so, like, I do have, kind of pre-race, race day, race night before routines that I follow in terms of diet and nutrition, in terms of kind of just warming up and trying not to get to the race start too early. I like to get there as close to the start of the race as possible. But all that being said, where I say no to your answer is that I don't necessarily have to follow them. Like I'm type B- enough. Is again, is something I've defined several times recently that like I just whatever. So like if something goes a little bit sideways, if something that I would prefer to have the night before or something that I would prefer to do or have the morning of, if something doesn't line up perfectly for my preferred routine, like okay, whatever, we'll roll with it. So I think that I have pre-race rituals that I would prefer to follow as far as, playlist. Like, I don't even have a playlist, but like just as far as making sure I've got something to listen to and the headphones are charged and everything's charged. The watch is charged and the heart rate monitor is good to go. Like the water bottles are filled. Like all of the things that, are ideal. But if something's a little bit off, whatever. It's all good. Sometimes that B- personality trait is not a positive, but I think this situation it is because there's nothing worse from a running perspective than having something little be a little bit off on race morning or the night before and have it throw you in a tizzy and start questioning everything mentally, which I know can happen. I know can happen to a lot of folks. I know it has happened to a lot of folks. And so I think having a ritual or a routine that you prefer but that you're not required to follow is maybe the ideal. And I'm definitely in that situation. So, it's the chicken, it's the yogurt, a little bit of fruit the night before, maybe a little bit of fruit, definitely some coffee in the morning. Have the pack lined up and with whether it's starting with water or starting with tailwind, probably starting with water, having a tailwind to mix in halfway through the way. Good to go. Perhaps, though, I should have a better pre-race ritual about making sure I have my shoes with me on race day. Although, again, that's only happened once, so we'll call it a fluke until it becomes a trend. But maybe there's room for a little more defined ritual there. I don't know. You be the judge. But great question, Hilda, and definitely for those of you that maybe feel like you need to have a more dialed in ritual, like that's fine. Just dial it in so that you're not kind of last minute putting things together and that's where something gets forgotten, like your shoes at your hotel room. Another question from Hilda. Do you get how do you get through the quote unquote this sucks period of your long runs? I get to a point in a marathon or a long run that I think, oh, I'll just walk a bit. This hurts. I ain't got nothing to prove, et cetera, et cetera. That is a great question, Hilda, and something that certainly I struggle with. Certainly I still struggle with. And I don't know that there's a guaranteed, like, I always do this situation or this answer for it. But I think that for me, having company on the long run helps. So I run with, as I've mentioned a few times, I've got a person in town, one of my athletes that I coach, who also happens to live like 4 miles away from me. So we kind of have this blurred line of like coach athlete, but also running partner friend situation, which is a fun dynamic because she calls me out on stuff all the time, and I call her out on stuff all the time. But we run together most long runs, and so having that company helps. Doesn't always make it more fun, but at least like I'm not just gonna like let her drop me. Of course, she could drop me if she wanted to step on the gas, but I'm not just going to let her drop me when we're just cruising along, and I'm not going to try to slow her down because I know she's got stuff to get on with on her day, just like I've got stuff to get on with on my day when we finish our run. So having a running partner definitely helps because hopefully we're not both in a this sucks period at the same time. You know, we might both get there on the same day, but if I'm at a this sucks early and she's there late or vice versa, then we can kind of support each other to just, keep going and keep talking or whatever and get through it that way. But I think also for me sometimes, like especially if I'm by myself, like music is a game changer. So I usually listen to podcasts or audiobooks or something like that at the beginning of a run. But if I get into a rough spot, I just, put the music on so it kind of gives me a little extra boost. It kind of turns the brain off a little bit more. I don't have to think anymore. I'm just listening to the music and I can just go. So that can help. And as Kate would tell you, she knows when I'm at a this sucks point because I do my horse noises. So like, which is a dumb thing to say, but like I just kind of and like that's when I'm kind of frustrated or tired or just kind of and the reason I mention that, and whether that's making a horse noise or screaming or whatever, sighing, like whatever, I think it's one of those. It's just kind of like a little bit of a release, a little bit of a pressure valve that if I'm going and all of a sudden just like it just kind of like. It just serves as a bit of a release. And so, that's not anything, particularly in depth or earth shattering, but if you can just have some type of pressure release valve, whether it's a noise, whether it's, swinging your arms or whatever, those types of things can help to just kind of, all right, get through, hopefully release some of that pent up, this sucks. And then you can find it a little bit easier to keep going. But it's a mixed bag. It's a moving target. Some days, a little bit of a walk. Yeah, okay. Like I'm not gonna pretend like I don't walk a little bit during a long run, especially if I'm running by myself. Again, that's where having a partner, because Kate's gonna keep dragging me. So we don't walk as much. I mean, we might walk a little bit here and there, but I walk more when I'm running by myself than I do when I'm with her. That's for sure. So maybe like it's just figuring out that right mix for you. But definitely, this sucks period. Like, hopefully it's short. Hopefully it's not something that you're into before the run starts and you're still there when your run finishes, because those runs really suck. But if you do find that happens once in a while, hey, congratulations. You're a human. You're a runner. Happens to all of us from time to time. But figuring out the right mix of releases and ways to get through it for you, like that's I think the goal. Easier said than done, but something to work towards. So good luck with that, Hilda. And glad that you're back to doing long enough runs where you get to a this sucks point, because I know it's been a struggle the last year or so for you. So glad to see that you're back to logging some longer miles and having to deal with a this sucks portion once in a while. Next question from Barb. How would you build an ideal taper? Key components and practices your body will appreciate and respond well to when race day rolls around. So, great question, Barb. The problem is that I don't know that there is. Oh gosh, this is going to sound like I'm so cliche for me or whatever. But like to me, the idea of an ideal taper is like a one size fits all taper, and clearly I'm not going to go down this is how taper should look for everybody. Like the ideal taper is the same thing as the ideal training plan, right? It's going to be different for each person based on how the training has been going, based on the personality of the runner, based on the goals for the race. Like there are factors that are going to turn, depending on how those different factors play themselves out, how the different knobs are turned, that's going to impact what I would consider would be the ideal taper for that person. Universally across the board, if we're talking about a taper, we're talking about some level of reduction of workout stress. So typically fewer miles, maybe cutting down on speed work. Now you may or may not eliminate it completely, but you're probably not going to do some just brutal killer workout, some like 5 or 8 mile tempo run, or some 10 by 400 meters, or 10 by some epic hard hill repeats or sprints or things like that. You're probably not going to want to do those things in the week or two leading up to your race, which would be that kind of taper period, because you're not getting much of a benefit from it. As far as physiologically, your body's not going to adapt to those stimuli, to adapt to those demands before the race hits. So you're not getting the payoff for that workout until after the race, which kind of defeats the purpose. And of course, anytime you're doing a real hard workout, there's more stress on your body. So there's more likely, slightly higher increased risk of injury or niggles or things like that, which you're also trying to avoid in the taper. So either eliminating or really toning back, maybe hitting a little bit of effort, a little bit, some strides or a couple of short repeats, something like that, just to kind of crank the engine. Those could be okay. I don't know that I would class those ideal or something that everybody should really consider. I think the reduction in mileage, that makes sense, right? Because you're giving your body a break, allowing your body to recover a little bit and rejuvenate and refresh before you go out for the race. But outside of that, there's a lot of moving parts. If you, for some people that are running, 6 days a week, they might take a couple of days off during the taper. Maybe not run, maybe do a little bit of cross training instead. So a little bit of different, like just easy cross training, but something that doesn't stress the body, but still gets a little bit of movement. Maybe they're going to do a little bit of extra foam rolling or some yoga or some type of more specific recovery type of work instead of when they're running. So in the same time, while maybe at the same time of day when they would run, but instead of running, they're going to focus more on a longer yoga session or a little bit more intentional foam rolling. That would work. That would make sense to me. The big thing is as far as running goes, how much you run during your taper kind of just depends on how much you need to avoid going crazy. So we've talked about the taper crazies a few times in the past, something that gets mentioned here and there during the taper, and you start getting all up in your head. Well, hopefully the runs can kind of serve as that pressure release to avoid too much second guessing and too much, oh my gosh, I'm losing all of my fitness, or I haven't run very long, and I only ran 10 miles last weekend. Am I going to be able to run my marathon? Like, yes, if you yes, it's not going to impact you. So keeping enough running to keep your mind from getting in your way, good idea. Pushing too much that you're inhibiting your body's ability to recover, to refresh, to rejuvenate, bad idea. What does that exactly look like? It depends. Depends. And I hate to always answer questions with it depends, and there's going to be a lot of those throughout the rest of the questions today, but it really does. It really does. Cut your mileage back is a good general rule. Dial back the intensity a little bit of any like normal workouts that you would do. Probably not a bad idea as well. Focus on recovery, focus on diet, nutrition, sleep, hydration, and hopefully that combination puts you in that best position to be ready to go on race day. But yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky, and so many other life factors, work, families, all that stuff also impacts the taper. So you got to be willing to adjust a little bit, just like with any part of your plan. You got to be willing to adjust a little bit based on the circumstances, and just keep your goal in mind. Recover, refresh, be ready to go, and then do the things that kind of make sense to try to help make that happen. But thank you for the question, Barb. Next question from the West Coast. Thessaly asks, do you keep a journal, running or otherwise? If so, how do you stay consistent with it? If not, why not? No, I do not keep a journal. Probably because every time that I've tried, I can't figure out a way to keep myself consistent with it. So I've tried various journaling apps or, just pen and paper, which would probably be my go-to. When I go with a pen and a paper, my struggle is that I don't know what to write. Like especially if it's just like a blank notebook journal. I don't do well with like really specific questions, but I don't do well with just a blank page and just write down whatever you think. Like I'm not thinking anything. So I have not like it's just awkward for me. I've never been a journaler, running or otherwise. I guess maybe Strava counts as my journal, but I very rarely put any notes or any additional information in there. So it's just, morning run. So it's to call it a journal would be a disservice to anybody who actually journals. So no, I don't. And again, the biggest factor is I can't figure out how to stay consistently engaged with it, because I don't really know what to write very often. So I don't know. It just doesn't really click for me. So there you go. I don't know which way to read into it if you're a journaler and you struggle to be consistent. But if it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for me. So you're in company. Good company or bad company, that's for you to decide. But thank you for the question, milady. Next question from Kenton. Cardiac drift. During long runs, it seems like at around the 2-hour mark, my heart rate tends to drift upwards. Should I continue to run at the current pace if the effort feels the same? Or should I slow down and keep the heart rate steady? So here comes the smart-assed answer to your question, Kenton, and then we'll get into the real question, or real answer, I guess. But I guess the first thing to consider, and I'm assuming this is the case since you're asking the question, but are you training based on heart rate training zones or heart rate training principles? If so, you want to keep your heart rate where you want it to be. If not, then who cares? Then who cares? I guess, if you don't care about your heart rate zones, then who cares that your heart rate's drifting, right? So I'm assuming, and again, that's kind of a little smart-assy little way of getting at it, but I'm assuming that since you're asking, you are doing some heart rate training, whether it's exclusive, whether it's 80-20, whatever it is, you're trying to keep your heart rate in this zone, and as you go on your long run, it drifts up, and that's totally normal. It totally happens. It happens to everybody. I don't care who you are, how highly trained you are, how many decades of heart rate training you've been doing. Now, obviously, the more trained you are, the longer you've been doing this, or maybe not obviously. In theory, the longer you've been doing this, the longer that you've been practicing it and maintaining your heart rate and low stress and yada, 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 the drift is going to be smaller, but it's always going to be there. It's just a natural part of fatigue, of generating more body heat, potentially generating more heat from the environment as well, as especially, certainly in the summertime, but maybe even, this time of year is if you start your run early in the morning, you start your run at 6 o'clock in the morning, the environmental heat isn't a factor, but you get 2 hours in, you get to 8 o'clock, the sun starts to come up. Certainly down here in the South, once the sun comes up, it's a little bit more of a factor. So that's going to help not going to help you, but it's going to help to increase your heart rate. But it's just a buildup of fatigue. I mean, it's going to happen in the dead of winter. It's going to happen in the dead of summer. But there might be other factors that influence it. I guess is what I'm trying to say. But if heart rate is your goal, you're trying to stay within a certain zone or underneath a certain upper end limit. I mean, I don't want to say that you should definitely always never vary on this. But if that's the philosophies and the principles that you've bought into, you're probably going to want to slow down a little bit to keep your heart rate where you want it to be. But maybe the I don't want to say the better answer, but maybe there's a third answer. So you kind of say, should I keep going at the same pace even though my heart rate's up, or should I slow down to keep my heart rate where I want it to be? Maybe there's a third answer out of that dichotomy, and maybe that's something that kind of lines itself up with when you're starting your long run during those first couple hours. Bring your pace down, bring your effort down to a level where your heart rate's not right up at the ceiling, right? So I'm just going to throw numbers out there. Say you're to try to prove my point, because I don't know if that made any sense. But let's say you're trying to keep your heart rate between 130 and 150 beats per minute, whatever that's the zone that you're working at. That's where you want to be. Doesn't mean that you have to be there the whole way. So you could start out with a heart rate in the 120s, and then as it drifts up into that zone, into the later part of your run. Great. Say you really do want to be in that zone the whole way, which I would argue that that's a little bit over planning, but hey, we're runners. We tend to over plan things. So instead of starting out at 145 and trying to keep it there the whole way, start out at 130, 131. You're in your zone. All right. And yes, you could be running faster, but if you know your heart rate's going to drift as you go and you really do kind of want to try to maintain pretty steady pace the whole way through, you start out at 130 and it kind of stays there, stays at 130, 132, 133 for the first couple hours. Then as it starts to drift, it goes, 132, 136, settles in at 140 for a bit. Maybe you keep going. Maybe you're at a 3-hour mark now. Now it's up to 142, 144. You're still underneath 150, right? So you're still in the right zone. You're not having to really adjust your pace too much. The drift isn't moving you outside of the effort area that you want to be. To me, that's kind of the best of both worlds. Maybe not surprising. That's kind of what my long runs usually look like. I usually start out in the 1-teens, in the 120s, even though my upper limit that I try to stay under is 141. And then it just kind of, over the course of the run, it starts to pick up a little bit. But rarely does it go out of the zone. If it does for a few beats when we're going up the one hill in town, like, okay, whatever, no big deal. But usually by then it's 3 hours in, 3.5 hours in, like we're getting close to being finished. Like I'm not super worried about it. But so maybe that doesn't, maybe that means that I'm hypocritical, which surprise, I'm hypocritical. But I just think that starting off low and letting it build without really like starting off right at that cusp. Like it's not like I'm starting off at 135 and then when I drift I'm up into the 150s, right? Like I might drift to 144. All right. Well, like it's a few beats, but it's not that. It's like I don't know. I'm not going to split hairs that much. So maybe there's a gray area in there for you, Kenton, is what I'm trying to say, where you can start at a lower effort level at the beginning of your run, and then as it does drift up, which again totally normal. It's just physiology. Like it happens. You're gonna have enough wiggle room that it can drift up a little bit. You can finish your run and not have to dramatically worry about slowing down, taking a walk break, cutting your pace, or saying the hell with it and letting your numbers just skyrocket. So you figure out what works best for you, but that's I think the way I would go at it instead of a one or the other like you posed in the question. So hope all that makes sense. Next question, another one from Kenton. Would you consider doing an inside tracker test just once and sharing your results? I know you're on a low carb, high fat diet, and I'm curious what your biomarkers say. So yeah, I would consider doing it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen though. And not because I care. Like I don't care, about sharing my numbers or my data or anything like that. Like it really doesn't matter to me. Which is probably why I bought a test like 5 years ago and still haven't gotten it done. Like, I don't even know if it's still allowable. Like, I don't know if I could go to my Inside Tracker account and be like, yeah, I bought this test back in, 2015 or 2016. And, I'm finally ready to get the blood draw. Like, I don't even know if that works or if I'd have to buy a new one. I can tell you if I have to buy a new one, I would consider doing it. I'm probably not going to because I don't care that much. If my test that I already bought is still valid, I would consider doing it. But it's been 5 years now that I've been too lazy to make an appointment and go and do it. And I would be disingenuous if I was going to say that oh yeah, I'll make it happen. Like, I'm probably not going to make it happen. I would be interested in seeing my biomarkers too. I'm not interested enough to care to do it, which is maybe a terrible way of answering the question, but it's an honest way of answering the question. So maybe it's a terrible mindset. But yeah, I think my biomarkers are fine, but I don't know. I mean, I think they are because I feel good. I'm running better than I ever have. I'm feeling better than I pretty much can ever remember feeling, just as far as general life, fitness, energy levels are good. Things are good. Doesn't necessarily mean all my numbers are great. I recognize that. But one of these days, I keep telling myself one of these days I'll go get the test. One of these days I'm going to write another book. One of these days I'm going to do a lot of things. So yeah, one of these days I'll do it. And when I do it, I'll share my results. Just word to the wise, Kenton, don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. Feel free to keep chiming in and asking every month. But as we know about the book situation, that doesn't exactly mean that I'm going to like make it happen anytime quicker. Right. So yeah, I'd consider it. I'd absolutely consider it. Sure. I'm considering it right now. Thank you for the questions, my friend. Next couple of questions from Mona. Her typical 3 or 4 or 5 question block. Here we go. First one, I have heard about the second wind. I bet you have too. Have you ever experienced it? What does it actually feel like? Is it particularly in long runs only that one might feel it? So, yeah, I mean, of course, I definitely have heard about catching your second wind, and I definitely feel like I've experienced it a couple times, and I think that how I understand the second wind, Mona, kind of means that it kind of really only is going to happen on long runs, because the way I feel it, or at least the way I would say that I have experienced it, is that you run for a while and things are going fine, and then, kind of almost like to Hilda's question, you get to the point where like this really sucks, where you're tired, your body hurts, like, it's just terrible. But then if you keep going, and if you're lucky, because it doesn't always happen, some days you just keep grinding and it just continues to suck and that's it. But some days you keep going and you kind of come out of it, and all of a sudden things feel pretty good again. The body feels good. The mind is clear. The running pace settles back in or picks back up, or you're feeling good. And like all of that, this sucks, kind of just disappears. And so I feel, to me, that's catching your second wind. And I don't feel like, for me personally, and again, this is going back to long and short, right? Back to Lisa's question at the very beginning. Like, I don't feel like running for 5 or 6 miles in my neighborhood in the morning is long enough for me to go through that cycle of, this is really good, oh God, now this sucks, and I'm going to just keep kind of grinding through, and then all of a sudden, oh man, now all of a sudden this is feeling pretty good. There's been times during those 6 milers or those daily runs where it started off and I just haven't really wanted to, and by the time I got going for a bit, I felt better. I wouldn't classify that as a second win. That's just kind of working out the kinks at the beginning, or kind of just doing it. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, when in the longer runs where it starts off good, it gets bad, and then it gets good again, to me, that's kind of the second win. And it doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen. I don't want to say it doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen every long run, for sure. Maybe not even the majority of my long runs, but it happens often enough that like there's times when it's just like, oh, all right, well, like that was rough for a while, but like I'm good again now. All right, let's keep going. And who knows how long it lasts, but it happens for me. Maybe I'm missing the boat. Maybe there's something else to it. Maybe some people would disagree with that or have different takes on it. But that's my subjective take on second wind. Next question: have you heard of low iron in runners? Absolutely. It says I got my blood test done and now I'm on a supplement. The hemoglobin is great, but the iron levels are low. Doctors think it's due to rigorous exercise. Now I'm eating spinach every day and I might turn to Popeye. But as a coach, have you ever, or has any of the runners that you coach gone through similar issues? So definitely heard of it. Going back to Kenton's question, I don't know if I've ever gone through it because, I don't test my blood. So who knows? As far as other runners that I'm coaching going through it, I don't, off the top of my head, I can't remember anybody who's like straight up been like, hey, I got my blood tested, my iron levels are way down. It very well could have happened. Almost probably has happened, but I don't exactly remember. Obviously, not obviously, a lot of times increasing your iron levels back up is actually, you know what? I do remember a couple times where this has happened. But diet, is a thing to try to help with, making sure that you're whether it's spinach, whether it's red meats, whatever, different ways of adding more iron to the diet. One thing that I don't know, I don't remember the details on, but I know I've heard this from various places, so it makes me think that, and not just from like certain sects of like dietary advice, but like kind of, from the paleo people, from the more vegetarian plant-based type of people, from kind of everywhere, is that when it comes to supplementation, even when you're supplementing by eating more spinach, but there's a difference between supplementing and your body absorbing. So you might want to do a little bit of check-in, do a little bit of research, maybe ask your doctor, whatever, about if there's other things that you need to be eating with your iron. And again, this isn't me leading somewhere. I don't specifically remember, but I feel like I've heard where you can eat all the iron you want, but if you don't have this certain vitamin or this certain mineral also coming in the diet at the same time, your body won't absorb and utilize a lot of that iron. And same thing with a lot of vitamins and minerals. If you're not, there's a lot of like, I don't know, not cohabitation, but like a lot of cooperative is still not quite the word I want, but like a lot of mutually beneficial relationship. Again, I don't know the word. I know y'all are screaming the right word, and it's not coming right now. But where you want this vitamin or mineral, but you also have to have it with whether it's fats or whether it's another vitamin or whether it's another mineral or whatever that breaks it down or allows it to transport or allows it to break through the different barriers, so that your body can actually utilize it. So you could, like, again, trying to say here, you could be eating all the liver or all the spinach or all the broccoli or all the whatever you want, but if you're not getting whatever that other thing is that I think there is something related to iron, your body's not going to process it very much, or it's going to only process a minimal amount. So your numbers might bump up a touch, but a lot of it's just passing through. So just something to think about. And again, that covers any vitamin or mineral that you might that you or anybody, Mona, might be supplementing. A lot of times it's less about one specific mineral or vitamin and more about kind of how everything plays together. So it's just something to think about. But yeah, I mean, supplementation is good. If it gets really, really bad, I've known some folks that have gone for like an iron transfusion, which is basically like kind of like a blood situation where they draw some of your blood out and then mix it in with, I don't know if it's other blood that's got more iron into it, or I don't know, or an iron solution. I don't know exactly all the details about it, but then your blood comes back in and it's got a lot more iron. Hopefully you can correct it through the diet. But yeah, just being aware. Again, maybe this is in cahoots with Kenton and trying to convince me that I should go get my inside tracker test. But just being aware, then you can take some steps to try to mitigate or balance things out. So it sounds like you're on that path, which is good. Next question from Mona. I'm skipping the warm-ups these days because I frankly don't like them. How crucial is warming up? Can one get away with just jogging the first mile or so? And do you really do them every single morning? So, I mean, like, the warm-up is important. It is important. And can you get away with just, an easy first mile? Like, sure-ish. Just like you could get away with a lot of things. Just like you could get away with, I don't know, what am I trying to think of? Different examples of, doing something kind of halfway. Right? Like you could get away with putting, the cheapest gas possible in your, turbo, Lamborghini, right? Like you can get away with it. Like, is it going to be optimal? Is that engine of that $500,000 car going to just purr? Probably not. So like you can get away with not doing any type of warm up other than just going out and running easy for the first mile. I mean, that's what I did for 8 years, 9 years, something like that. And it was quote unquote fine. Do I feel like doing the warm up every day is better? Yeah, that's why I do it. Now, gun to my head. Do I do the warm up every single day without fail? No. Do I do the warm up, which is for me the lunges and the leg swings? Do I do that 90% of the time? I think so. I don't track it, but like, did I do it this morning? Yes. Did I do it yesterday morning? Yes. But the only time I don't do it is if it's a day when I oversleep a little bit, and because I have to be back at a certain time to help Addie get ready for school and get the girls out the door on time. It's like, all right, well, I could get my normal 6 mile loop in, or I could do my warm up and then have to try to figure out how to get back to the house at 4.5 miles. And so on those days, I'm like, you know what? I'll skip it today. But again, I mean, that's maybe once every couple of weeks, I mean, it's not often. So yeah, I mean, I do my lunges and my leg swings, and some days I might do more, some days I might do less, again, depending on how much time I have or things like that. But I do it every day because it helps to wake up my legs. It helps to lubricate my joints. It helps to wake up my glutes, helps to get my body moving. And so that first mile, like, I don't have to just kind of jog through it. Like, not that I'm attacking the first mile, but like, I can get out the door and go. And so I think for me, it's crucial. If you want to skip it, that's fine. My advice would be to figure out a warm-up that you enjoy. If you hate doing the lunges and the leg swings, don't do the lunges and the leg swings. Do some, there's a dozen, probably more than that. There's probably thousands of different types of pre-run warm-ups that you could do, from calisthenics to jumping jacks to, different leg circles, different other movements, walking up and down a couple flights of stairs in the house, even, just anything that gets your body moving a little bit, gets your muscles warmed up. And then you can go out and ease into that first mile, and I mean, it's not hurting anything. It's probably helping anything. But if you don't like it, just like I said, I mean, maybe try to find a different routine or a different setup, different mix of movements that would help you, or that would be tolerable for you, and then it's probably going to help you. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, I do my warm up just about every single morning. Last question from Mona. Are you prepared for Halloween? What are you guys dressing up as? I mean, I'm not dressing. I say I'm not dressing up for Halloween. Ask Rebecca. I think I'm probably doing. Addison's going as Hermione Granger, because she just finished reading the seven Harry Potter books. And so she's going as Hermione. I think that Rebecca is going to do some type of, like custom shirt situation. Like, she got a couple of cheap shirts, and she's going to use her little crafty Cricut machine to put something on the front of a shirt that is something Harry Potter related. And that's, I guess, what I'll wear. Left to my own devices, I won't be wearing that. But some fights, some issues in the marital relationship aren't worth making into issues. So if there's a shirt on Halloween Day that's got something about, my wand or Quidditch champion or something, then I'll wear the damn thing and roll my eyes about it and try to maintain harmony in the household. And if there's not a shirt, then I'll just probably wear, just whatever, some random running shirt from who knows how many years ago that I still wear, like the one I'm wearing right now from 2014. So, we'll see. To be determined. Addison's going as not as Harry Potter, but as Hermione Granger. That's all that really matters. As far as the rest of preparing for Halloween, no. It's still September. We're not preparing for Halloween just yet. But if that's your thing, hey, you do you. It's all good. It's all good. But thank you for the questions this month, as always, Ms. Mona. Next question from Sherry. What are some things a newbie might not know to do in preparation for and on race day of a road 50K? So, Sherry, I think this is one of those questions where it's like the simple answer is, don't really do anything differently than what you do for your marathon, because you add into the question that, you've run several marathons, you run numerous marathons, but this is your first 50K. Don't do anything too different, but at the same time, like this isn't a marathon. Okay. And while lots of people have said, and I may have said once or twice as well, that like, if you can do a marathon, you can do a 50K. And I believe that. I don't necessarily think that going into your first 50K with the expectation of it being just like a marathon is good. Meaning, you're going 5 miles farther. So there's that. And the fact that it's a road marathon or road 50K instead of like a trail 50K, I think that makes it a little bit tougher to separate the two, right? Like for me, I'd run several road marathons, and then I was doing my first 50K, but it was a trail race. So it was easy to be like, this is just a completely different thing. But I think as much as you can, going into it as a completely different thing is the thing to do. Because you might walk a little bit more. Like maybe for you, and I don't know all your details, Sherry, and it doesn't really matter, but maybe for you, the idea of walking during a road marathon is like, oh God, no. Like I wouldn't do that unless I was having a terrible race. Well, you might walk during a 50K, doesn't necessarily mean it's a terrible race. Like just remove those types of thoughts. Remove worrying about your exact pacing, and remove, I just gotta, just pound 6 gels throughout the course of the race, and that's all I need. Like, no, it's an ultra. Now again, it's on the road, which starts to blur the lines of still being kind of a lot like a road marathon. But like, eating, you might want to eat a little bit during the race. Now, it might not be anything crazy. It's not like you're doing, some 24-hour event where you really need to eat a lot, but like having a banana instead of just a gel, or having, my personal rule, never say no to potato chips on race day, like having a couple potato chips or whatever. Those types of things, like, don't just because you wouldn't do that in a marathon doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't do that in an ultra. Even if it's quote unquote just a 50K, even if it's on the road and feels an awful lot like a road marathon. But the biggest thing is to not overthink it, right? Like, I just told you a bunch of things to overthink, and maybe the biggest answer is to just, trust yourself, trust your training, trust your body, and just go. You might pace a little bit slower. You might walk a few times. That's okay. You might eat a little bit more. You might not. Your nutrition plan might be exactly what you would normally do during a road marathon, whatever. But just kind of don't overthink it too much. If you've done the training, you'll be fine. And if you get to that point where this sucks, do a little horse noise and walk a little bit. And hopefully you'll catch that second wind and you'll come through it, and then you can cruise along to the finish line. But good luck. I would say that, if you decide to do more ultras, play with the trail a little bit. That really is a whole different experience. But I think it's a different experience in a good way. So, it makes it a lot easier to really separate. It's a 50K versus a road marathon. Like, a road 50K is going to feel an awful lot like a road marathon. Which may or may not be a bad thing. I don't know. It depends. But the biggest thing, like I said, don't overthink it. Just have fun. And just get out there and enjoy the race. Not sure that helped a whole lot, Sherry, but again, don't overthink it. And that's maybe the best bit of advice I can give you. So good luck. Next question from Hildy. Planning on a trail 10K in November and then a trail half marathon next year. And I'm wondering, how different is the training from preparing for a half marathon road race? So when it comes to training, honestly, Hildy, I wouldn't say it's much different at all. It's still going to be 13 miles. It's still going to be, you still need to get a certain amount of time on your feet and get some good miles in and listen to your body, get a little bit of workouts and a little bit of duration and yada, yada, yada. Like the training part, pretty much the same. Unless you know that the trail you're going to run on is like super mountains. It's going to be a mountain half marathon. And then you might want to mix in a little bit more specific stuff for running ups and running downs and feeling comfortable doing that type of thing. But assuming that the terrain of the trail isn't too gnarly, the training isn't that much different. As far as what to expect on race day, now, again, that's like trail conditions change from day to day. So, like you never know exactly what you're going to get on the trail until you're out there. So maybe some of the mental preparation, some of the goal setting, things like that, you might give yourself a little bit more of a wiggle room. If you're an ABC goal type of person, and for a road half marathon, maybe you got, my C goal is to, just finish, and my B goal is to finish in 2 hours and 20 minutes, and my A goal is to finish in 2 hours and 5 minutes. Like, you might give yourself even wider berth. Like, my C goal for the trail race is to finish. My B goal is to finish in 2 hours and 30 minutes. And my A goal is to finish, 2 hours and 15 minutes or 2 hours and 5 minutes or whatever. Like basically, just depending on the conditions, you might be able to move pretty good. You might not. So, as far as the mental planning, goal setting, things like that, that's where it maybe gets different, but just the physical training, pretty much the same. If you can get on some trails, whether it's the same trails or not, I think that's a good idea, because trail running definitely is a little bit different than road running, as far as being careful of where you're stepping and making sure you're not, tripping on rocks and picking your feet up a little bit more, things like that. But as far as like a training plan, as far as mileage, things like that, it's basically the same. I wouldn't overthink the fact that it's a trail 10K or a trail half versus preparing for a road half. Like, it'll be fine. And it'll be fun, hopefully. Have fun with it, Hildy. Can't wait to hear how those races go. Next questions, 2 from Lewis in his typical fashion, a serious question, then a less serious question. First question, serious question. What do you think about Salazar's ban being upheld? In case you haven't noticed a theme here, Lewis, I haven't thought at all about Salazar's. I didn't even know that it was up for debate as to whether it was going to be upheld or not. I mean, I literally know as much about the situation as what your question is the 10 words that you put there. I think it's good. I think that I don't trust anything that he does. So yeah, uphold the ban. That's fine. Like, probably good. But I don't care. I mean, I don't care if elite athletes want to try to cheat, and if they get caught, they get caught. And it seems, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, and it seems like more and more of the athletes that get caught have some connection with Salazar. So, maybe he's the one orchestrating it. I don't want to convict the guy when I literally haven't looked into any of the details, and quite frankly, my opinion doesn't matter. But, like, if he's associated, implemented somehow, then yeah, he should, like, that's, you do the crime, you do the time, right? But I honestly could care less. And I've already spent now a minute thinking about it, and that's a minute more than I wanted to think about it. So great. Uphold the ban. Moving on. And I don't mean to dismiss that question, Lewis, but I just don't care. I just don't care. It doesn't affect me at all. Funny question. How are those lessons in the book coming? I mean, like, I've never really, I'm not taking guitar lessons. Like, I'm just kind of self-teaching via YouTube. And I mean, I guess they're going okay. Like, I haven't really been working on any new songs, just trying to refine some of the songs that I've been working on, especially some of the more tricky ones. Like, I'm not playing like super regularly, but I probably pick the guitar up 3 or 4 times a week. So I guess it's still going okay. Probably could actually use a refresher on going into some of the YouTube lessons that I've done in the past and just kind of refresh, make sure that what I think I'm working on is actually what I'm supposed to be working on as far as notes and chords and things like that. But I guess that's going fine. As far as the book, same old, which is there's no update. You want an update on the book? There is no update on the book. There you go. One of these days I'm going to have an update on the book. I'm going to shock all of y'all. Just today is not one of those days. So thanks for the questions, my friend. Hope things are well. Next question from David. What advice do you have if you're going for a PB and a half marathon, but for whatever reason, you find yourself in the wrong corral or near the back? Do you give up on the idea of a PB? Do you try and run around the slower runners, but use up energy? Do you try and wait until it thins out and then try to run faster miles than you've ever trained for near the end of the race? Great question, David, and something that I do have some experience with. So, for any number of reasons, whether it's a clerical error, whether it's whatever reason, like you showing up late to a race and just kind of getting stuck in a corral that you could have been farther up, but you can't be for whatever reason. Like it can happen. And on the one hand, it's like it's no big deal, right? Like, you're still running the race, you're still there, and if it's a race with enough corrals that you're like starting far enough back, of course your time doesn't start until you cross the finish line or cross the start line, I guess. So like the race might start at 6 o'clock in the morning, but your corral might not start until 6:30. Well, that doesn't mean that you've already lost 30 minutes, right? It means that the race has started and the first corral goes and everybody moves up a little bit and the next corral goes off a few minutes later and so on and so forth until your corral finally goes off. Whatever time it does, maybe it's 3 minutes, maybe it's 5 minutes, 8, 10, 30, whatever. But your clock doesn't start until you cross the timing mat, right? So in theory then, like, you've still got just as good of a chance to run your race and set your new PR, your new PB, as you would no matter where you started. Except if you've been there, you know that that's not quite the case, and it kind of gets to your question because, let's just make up some numbers. But let's say your plan is to run a 9-minute pace, which would put you just under 2 hours for your half marathon, which would be a PB, right? You've trained for it, you're ready for it, and now you're starting at a corral where the folks that are in that corral are they're farther back. Maybe their average pace is closer to like 12 minutes, something like that. Nothing wrong with that, of course, right? It's all relative, but being in a pack of people running 12-minute pace kind of cramps your style if you're trying to run a 9-minute pace, right? Like, I mean, hopefully that just makes sense. So when that happens, if that happens, I think I think you don't have to give up on the PR attempt or the PB attempt, right? You can still PB from the back of the pack, but you're going to have to change your mindset. And the quicker you can do that, the better. So one thing that you can try to do is get, and this is going to depend on the race logistics, so this may not apply. But if you can, David, get to the race early enough that you can be at or very near the front of your corral. All right, now I don't know what race you're running, and I don't have a lot of experience with a lot of non-Disney races that have like real, like legit defined corrals. But I know for a Disney race, like you've got, you usually have 10 or 12 different corrals, and like each corral has like its own little like, cutoff line, right? And so if you get into the corral early enough, you can be right up at the front of the line, which means then when you start, you're not going to, you're basically not in the corral. Like you're in the corral you're starting with, but you're not going to be surrounded by runners that are in that group. So again, back to our example, you're trying to run 9-minute pace. The corral qualifying time, if you will, or the sorting time is that folks that average 12-minute pace to 14-minute pace. Okay. If you're at the very start of that line, you're not going to get quote unquote bogged down. And I mean that with no disrespect to anybody running a 12 or 14-minute pace. Like you just think about the situation. You're not going to get bogged down in a group of 12-minute runners because you're going to be out in front of them all. Now, you're going to catch up to the corral in front of you that maybe is a bunch of 10-minute to 12-minute runners, which, again, nothing wrong with being in that pace window, but for you trying to run a 9-minute pace, like that's not helping you anything. But at least you'll get a little bit of clear air to begin with. So that would be my first recommendation, is get there early, get as front of the corral as possible, maybe even try to weasel your way up there if there's already some people there, and just kind of maneuver towards the front without pushing and shoving, of course, but just trying to move up to the front so that you have fewer people to try to work through. Then when it comes to your race, if you're still going to go for the PB, and I still think you can, and I still think you can be successful, maybe not having quite as massive of a PB as you'd hope to get, but I still think you can get there, depending on, if you're trying to PB by like 3 seconds, if your margin of error is small, it's going to be a challenge. Can you still do it? Yes. But if you're, if you think that, oh yeah, I can get it by a few minutes, like, then still go for it. But when you get into those sections of the course where you're catching up to some of the corrals that are in front of you, with runners that are running a little bit slower than you are running, you've got to be, I don't know, like polite but aggressive. Like you're not gonna be pushing people out of the way. At least you better not be. All right, you don't want to be that guy. But when you have the opportunity to make a move, you've got to be aggressive about taking it. So if you get into a little bit more of a congested part of the course or a congested part of part of the route, and there's an opening to get through that doesn't require pushing and shoving or cutting people off, but you're probably not going to be cutting people off because you're going to be catching up to these people and passing them. So you don't have to necessarily worry about people coming from behind from you. But if you can, you might have to bob and weave a little bit, but when you see that opening, when you've got that chance to move up, take it. That might mean that you're going to have less than even splits the whole way. You might have some miles, or at least some segments of miles where you're moving pretty good. It's going to be short, of course, but like you move here, good, and now you can kind of settle that into your 9-minute pace and cruise. Then you got to, you get bogged down a little bit, you slow down, you find the next opening, you move. You just need to be very aware, kind of consciously scanning the whole time for where are the openings, where are the less congested parts of the course. Hopefully it's a wide enough road situation where there's not a lot of bottlenecks, and you can kind of like, yes, you're gonna probably bob and weave a little bit. Which means you're going to end up, instead of being a 13.1, you might be a 13.25. You might be 13.5 by the time you get to the finish line because of this extra bobbing and weaving, which obviously is going to minimize the chances of a PR, or at least the amount of cushion that you're going to have over your previous best to what you run in that race. But it's doable. It's doable. I wouldn't do the whole wait until it thins out 5 miles in to then try to go, hammer it for the last 8 miles. Like I mean, that's an option, but that's like the least good option as far as I'm concerned. Get to the front of the pack, and at the start in the corral, and then be opportunistic with your aggression, but don't be a douche. All right, don't piss and moan about how unfortunate it is that you're in this corral for one reason or another. Don't hem and haw about how slow everybody is around you. All right, they're all where they're supposed to be in terms of pacing, in terms of the logistics that have been set up by the race. All right, for whatever reason, whether it's your fault or not, you're in this corral that you could probably be ahead of, probably should be ahead of, but that's not anybody's fault. Maybe it's your fault, but if it's not your fault, it's not anybody's fault. It's not anybody's fault that's around you. So don't be huffing and puffing and sighing and come on, move. Like, what are you all doing? Like, they're all running their race. Respect that. You're running your race. You got an extra hurdle, right? You got an extra little thing that you got to work around as far as other people and getting through the congestion and stuff, you know? And if you don't want to stress about it, then just give up on the PB and just run and have fun. Stop for pictures, you know, depending on what the course is, or talk to some folks or whatever. Like, find a different motivator than the PB, which sucks if that's the route it has to go. But don't you dare be that guy that ruins everybody else's race by hemming and hawing or cutting people off or pushing people out of the way. Like, don't do that. Okay? But I do think if you want to go for it, I think you can still go for it. I've got a PB from the last corral. Just, you know, and it's a good story, right? Like you almost feel like a little bit more of a badass when you can do that. When you can bob and weave your way through, you know, a lot more people and a lot more congestion and still end up with a PB. Like, that's kind of awesome. And maybe, just maybe, you end up running faster than you thought you could. Now, the time may not work out because you're still working, you know, you're adding more distance because you're bobbing and weaving so much. But, like, it is kind of cool to be like, well, hell, even when it wasn't the best situation, I still did it. Like, so go for it. Go for it. Let me know how it goes. Let us know how it goes. I can't wait to hear how it shakes out for you, David. Good luck. Now it's that time again, as it is time every month, for the Tom Trifecta. We need a sound effect for the Tom Trifecta. It is time for the Tom Trifecta. First question from Western New York. I will be heading into Tapertown in a couple of weeks as I get ready for my fall marathon taking place on October 24th. Between family and work, I can only run in the mornings during the week. During the last week before my race, does it matter if I miss some days of running in order to get more sleep? Are there any important runs I should do during the week before the race? So, Tom, you know, it's a lot of overlap between questions today. This kind of obviously harkens back to Barb's question about the ideal taper. But no, dude, nothing wrong at all with skipping a day or two of running in order to get some more sleep. In fact, some cases that might almost be the ideal situation that Barb wanted me to define for her. That's the name of the game. The name of the game in the taper is to refresh, recover, rejuvenate your body, right? And guess what? Going out for 4 miles on a Wednesday morning, like, doesn't really refresh your mind. Well, maybe it refreshes your mind. It certainly doesn't refresh your body like an extra 30 minutes of sleep does, right? So absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong at all with, quite frankly, there's nothing wrong with taking the whole week off. Not something that most of us would do, but nothing wrong with taking that whole week off and just sleeping in every single day to just make sure you're as physically rested and recovered that your gas tank is full come race day. As far as any workouts to do the week before the race, I mean, not really. There's nothing that's like vitally standing out. I mean, I would mostly just keep it easy. Maybe mix in a couple strides early in the week. Maybe if you wanted to run like 1 mile at like goal pace just to kind of feel it on like Tuesday or Wednesday for a Saturday or Sunday race, like, you can. I don't know that you need to. I don't know that you have to. I wouldn't consider it more important to do that. But those are all just kind of things where, again, it's all about mentally making sure that you're not going crazy in your head. So if you need to get a few runs in, mix in a couple of strides or a couple of like a faster mile here or there, like, physically doesn't do anything. Mentally can do something pretty powerful. So if that's what you need, that's what you need. But yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with missing a run or two. Nothing wrong with cutting your normal 6 miler down to 2. Nothing wrong with any of that at all. Because again, the idea is stay loose, keep your mind from getting out of control, but recover and rejuvenate as much as possible. So it's definitely a case where addition by subtraction makes all the sense in the world. So yeah, sleep in a couple days, don't stress about those missed runs, and then get out there and hammer it on the 24th. Get that second marathon of the year. There you go. There you go. Make it happen. Next question from Tom. Have you set any goals yet, running or otherwise, for 2022? No, not really. Not really. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have the gears sort of starting to turn. But quite frankly, I'm more focused on what are the goals for the last quarter of this year, as far as, like what are some things that I can work towards to set myself up to start 2022 strong, to finish this year well. And so if you ask me this question in October, there's a better chance that there would be something percolating. But right now I'm more focused on starting Q4 strong, and I'll worry about 2022 goals and 2022 ambitions a little bit farther down the road. Hopefully there'll be some book progress. Maybe I'll get my blood checked. But I wouldn't count on either of them for sure. And I'm probably not going to make either of them like a defined goal. We'll just kind of see how those all shake out. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure there'll be I would say that more than likely there'll probably be another 2022 type of mileage goal. Hopefully more strength, more cross training. That didn't go real well this year, so we'll see. But yeah, I'll nail things down more as we go. Certainly into December, I'll have things nailed down a little bit more. And as always, I'll share most of my goals. I may not share all of them. Some of them I like to keep closer to the vest, but at least some of the financial or personal goals, some of the business goals, you don't necessarily always need to share those. But running stuff, yeah, I'll be an open book when it's time. It's just not quite time yet. Although if you're already thinking towards 2022, that's not a bad thing either. I would just say don't just waste the last quarter of this year worrying about 2020. Like, think about what you want to do in 2022, what your goals might be, and then how can you use the next 3 months to set yourself up to start the new year strong. So, I guess there's something in there, maybe. But have I personally set any goals yet? No, not yet for 2022. To be determined. Last question from Tom. What is autumn like in Florida? Autumn in Florida. That's funny, Tom. I didn't realize you'd been working as a stand-up, but it's not. There's no fall in Florida. Fall in Florida feels like Christmas. Not Christmas to you, of course, but it feels like that's when it's kind of fall, where it's almost chilly in the morning sometimes, where you have to actually look at the weather before you go out for your run, not to see how hot and miserable it's going to be, but should I wear my t-shirt or should I go no shirt today? I don't know. That's what fall feels like in Florida, And as a northerner who lives down here now, fall in Florida is like the worst time of year, because I think I've said this before, but fall is the one season that I really, truly miss. I miss the chill in the air. I miss the crispness. I miss the crunch of the leaves. Just the smell. I don't have a good sense of smell, but the smell of fall. And if you don't know what fall is, you won't know what that means. But all of you northerner folks, you know what fall smells like. And I miss that kind of stuff. I miss the sweatshirt and the gloves and the vest combo, which that doesn't work down here. I miss the fall. So what does fall feel like in Florida? It feels like the summer, and like the summer never ends until hopefully by Thanksgiving, more likely by Christmas, it might sort of feel like fall-ish. But it doesn't smell like fall. It's not as crisp as fall. There's no leaves like fall. It's just not oppressively hot for a few weeks, which is appreciated, but barely holds a candle to real fall. And so those of you that are getting some real fall now or will be getting it soon, please enjoy it for me. Please don't. I mean, you can feel free to rub it in a little bit. That'd be kind of mean, but you can do that. But definitely enjoy it. Definitely enjoy it, because I miss it. I miss it for sure. But thanks for the trio there, Tom. As always, hope things go well, and good luck with your race. Can't wait to hear how that goes in another few weeks. 4 questions left. 2 from Michaela, 2 from Barb. First one from Michaela: how do I reintroduce other subjects into my daily conversation? I fear running may have taken over. I'm going to answer your question with a question, Michaela, and be like, why do you feel the need to reintroduce other subjects into daily conversation? Like, if you're talking to people on the regular that don't want to talk about running, like, I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. Like, kick them to the curb and get some more running friends. But in seriousness, I mean, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't talk about anything. Like, I talk about running. Maybe I talk about soccer once in a while. That's about it. So I don't really know. I don't really know how to introduce subjects other than running. Actually, my real answer to the question is try to eliminate conversations from your life. If you can do that, problem solved. And, outside of talking to Rebecca, I don't talk to people. Like, I talk to Kate on Saturdays, but let's not kid ourselves. Kate talks to me on Saturdays. I talk to the dog, and then I talk to Addison, but she's talking about whatever nonsense television shows that she's watching. So I don't really, it sounds like when she talks to me about a lot of that stuff, it sounds like, Charlie Brown talking to the teacher. Like, I don't understand any of it, but I'm just like, yeah, cool, dear. Like, that's awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. I get it. I don't. So yeah, I mean, I talk to you guys about running. Like, that's like 90% of my conversations. Even with Rebecca, like I talk to Rebecca, of course, but like even with her, like half the time we're talking about running stuff, and then half the time she's talking about school stuff, and like I try to pay attention, but like I don't like to talk about. I don't like to talk, so I don't know. I think I'm making myself worse than better with this answer, but like if you can just eliminate non-running conversations, like that solves the problem. And whether that means you got to find new friends or find fewer friends. Addition by subtraction. Didn't we just talk about that with Tom? Addition by subtraction. There you go. Oh man, sometimes I feel like I should go back and edit some of these things because I'm like, God, I just made myself sound like a terrible person. I think this might be one of them. But it is what it is. What you see is what you get around here. There's no facade that I'm a good person. At least I hope there's no facade. Anyway, next question. Before I make it any worse, let's go on to the next question. What if one of your athletes that isn't in the works or the kitchen sink or the concierge coach, whatever the new level of coaching is, that you're going to give me a chance to talk about that. So thank you, Michaela. Appreciate that. Or even, somebody who's not one of your athletes, but just a listener and would like to run with you, like how would it go about to run a race with you? Would that be possible? How? So kind of a loaded question that I'll try to unload a little bit. So in case you haven't heard, which I think you've probably heard because I've mentioned it a few times, but I'm working on this new level of coaching, and one of the perks, it's a high level. I'm not gonna pull any punches there, but one of the perks is that I'll show up a couple times a year to a race, to run it with you, to pace you, to crew you, like whatever it is, whether it's an ultra marathon, whether it's, I don't know if it would make sense to do it for a 10K, but if you were like, or a 5K even, but like if you're just like, I want to see this guy suffer by making him run a 5K with me, like I'd do it. The price, like that's what you're paying for, right? We'd figure it out. But would that be possible for folks that aren't at that level? Whether it's my athletes, other folks at the coterie level, folks at the 1-to-1 level, or folks that aren't coached by me at all, but you listen to the show, you'd be like, I'd love to have you come run with me. The answer is, would that be possible? Yes. How? Kind of not sure yet. Kind of to be determined. Kind of a case-by-case basis based on, maybe, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to paint myself into a corner because it's something that I've thought about a little bit, but I haven't like really thought it out yet as far as what the costs would be, how it would work. Like if we're just going to run the same race together, but we're not like running together, like that might be one thing. If we're actually going to run the entire race together and like me kind of being there to work as far, like, not that it's work, but you know what I mean? Like if I'm quote unquote on the clock because I'm pacing you, like we're running, I'm trying to help you run your best race as opposed to we're both just going to meet up at the start line. We're going to run and we'll meet up again at the finish line. Like there's a few different factors, several different factors, a bunch of different factors that would be considered. So it really would be a case-by-case situation. But, I mean, I'm a businessman, right? Like, if there's an opportunity, we'll figure it out. And it's not like I'm not going to try to rake you over the coals to cost all the monies. But at the same time, like, if I'm traveling to, wherever to run a race with you, like, and that's the purpose of me going there is to run with you, like that's not free, right? So like whether it's covering costs, whether it's whatever, like there's something involved with it. And obviously that's baked into the new coaching level price point is that you're kind of prepaying for those things, and then it doesn't cost you anything on race day because you've already paid for it. So yeah, is it possible? Sure. Would I love to have people knocking down my door being like, dude, can you run this race and that race and this? Like, I'd love it. First dibs will go to the people that are in the new level of coaching, right? Because they're already paying for it. Like they're already getting it. Like that's already got to deliver to them first. Second dibs, as far as scheduling, making it work out, would probably be folks that I'm coaching at the other two levels, at the coterie or at the 1-to-1. And then if it still works out and somebody else just wants to make it happen, we can figure it out. And obviously, again, location, duration, things like that. There's variables that would go into it. But yeah, anybody who's interested in me showing up and being your personal pacer on race day or your personal cheerleader or a little bit of both, the door is open for those conversations, and we can try to figure out something that makes sense for everybody. All right. So if that's you, Michaela, let's talk. But certainly no pressure. But appreciate the question and appreciate the chance to let me talk a little bit more about whatever we're calling it. I like the concierge and I like the works. But we'll nail it down when it becomes official, and it's getting close to being official. But appreciate it. Thanks for the questions. Last two from Barb. How about a few tips to give you an edge in a race? Any little tricks or practices that will benefit you on race day? So, I mean, Barb, and I'm not trying to dismiss your question. There's so many that there's no way that I could think about all of them. But here's a few, right? Have a plan, but don't be too specific. So kind of know what you want to do. I think we talked about this in a recent quick tip. Was it a couple weeks ago maybe? Kind of having some loose plans, having some loose guidelines, but trying not to meticulously plot out every single mile for your race. But I know where I want to be at, after the first 5K and after the 10-mile mark, and have a loose plan, not be too specific. Start slower than your goal pace, then settle in and cruise. That's why I like to have maybe a 5K mark, at least for a half or a full marathon. I know at the 5K I want to be at 30 minutes. Maybe your goal pace would be 9-minute pace, which would be 27 minutes. But if I'm at 30 minutes at 5K, I'm good. Then I can settle in to that goal pace, settle down closer to 9-minute pace, and then just cruise. So, but definitely start slower. And I know some people will tell you don't need to try to negative splits and yada yada yada. And I mean, you don't necessarily need to, but I feel like you have more room for error when you go out a little bit slower, then settle in and give yourself a chance to kick it at the end, versus trying to hang on at the end, which is a lot harder to do. Not impossible, but harder to do. Speaking of the end of the race, don't drop the hammer until you can literally see the finish line. All right, if you're on pace for a PR, you're trying to really bring it in to finish the race really strong and nail it. Too often I've been the guy. Too often I've also seen folks that they're going like a bat out of hell because they think they're close. They're close to the finish line, but they can't see it yet. And then their mind gets the better of them, or in my case, the mind gets the better of me. And you're pushing, and then you're like, oh, I can't, and you can't maintain it. So you almost end up costing yourself more time because you start your finishing kick a little too early. There's something psychological, and maybe it ties it psychological/mental. I guess they're kind of the same thing. But when you can literally see the finish line, you almost guarantee won't fade. Once you start pushing, by being able to see it, even if it's fairly well off in the distance, but you can see it and you can see yourself closing on it, your body, your brain tells your body, hey, we can get to that point. And your brain doesn't kind of turn on the governor and cause you to slow down before you get there. So wait until you can see the finish line. You might be pushing it a little bit, but don't throw caution to the wind. Don't drop the hammer until you can legitimately see the finish line at your race. Listen to your body. Trust what your body's telling you. If your body's telling you can go a little faster, don't be a slave to your watch and be like, oh, well, it's supposed to be 9-minute pace. Now, you may not want to go crazy in the first, mile, right? Because the excitement, the energy, that's why maybe start having a plan and starting a little bit slower is important. But once you're at mile 15 of your marathon, if your legs want to go a little faster, or maybe at mile 5, whatever. But if your legs want to move a little bit, don't break into a sprint, of course, but don't be like, oh, well, I got to force myself to stay at this 9-minute pace. Maybe you're a little bit more ready than you thought. Maybe you could dial it down by another 5 or 10 seconds per mile and be just fine. So trust what your body's telling you. Likewise, if you're working pretty hard and you need to back off a little bit, don't just be like, well, I got to maintain my pace. Give yourself a little grace, slow it down just a little bit, and see if maybe you catch that second wind or whatever. But listen to what your body's telling you. And then my personal rule, take it for what it's worth, never say no to potato chips on race day. Something about that salty, fatty, carby goodness that just, especially a good, thin Lay's potato chip that just kind of disintegrates as soon as it hits your tongue. Grab a few of those and Now you're gonna have potato chip burps, which isn't exactly ideal, but never say no to potato chips on race day. May or may not be something that you want to adhere to, but that's a definite rule for me. And then last but not least, most important tip, most important edge is to try to have fun. Try to have fun. Smile, enjoy it. Give the kids high fives, laugh when you see a good sign. Don't be so like locked in business focused only that you forget to have a good time out there. Because at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, at the middle of the day, like we're doing this because we enjoy it, right? Like you're not paying your bills because of your running performance. In fact, you're incurring bills because of your running performance. So enjoy it out there. Make sure it's fun, and everything else will be what it will be. It may not always take care of itself, but it'll be what it'll be. But try to have fun. And there is something psychological about, pain perception decreases when you're smiling. So if it's a little bit of a struggle, if you're in that pain cave a little bit, if you're in that this sucks phase, maybe to add a little bit to Hilda's answer from earlier, but smile. And that will, it's proven that diminishes your perception of pain and discomfort. So you smile through it, and you're able to keep going a little bit better. And maybe that works you till you get to that second win, and then you can, drop the hammer when you see the finish line. So there's a few tips. There's probably thousands more. But in an effort of not making this a 14-hour podcast, we'll just give you whatever that was, 7. 7's good. 7's a good number. But thank you for that question, Barb. And last but not least, the last question from Barb. I've come to love heart rate training and knowing that my training runs will be easy. How do you effectively flip the switch and really push yourself in a race? So, first of all, Barb, I'm glad you're enjoying heart rate training. It really is something that can take a little while to really embrace, but once you do it, it really is nice to just go out there, run, and not feel like you're wrecked every single day that you go run. When it comes to race day, flipping the switch, to me, it's all mental. All right, like when I tell myself that it's race day, I'm gonna race, right? I'm gonna run faster. I'm not gonna worry about my heart rate at all. So it's not like I need to flip anything physically. Like physically, I'm there. Physically, like your body doesn't forget how to run fast. It doesn't lose its ability to run fast. And when you've been heart rate training, you build up that aerobic engine, you're able to better maintain that speed. Your endurance improves. You're able to maintain that speed relatively longer. And so it's just a matter of flipping the switch mentally to say all right, I'm probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable at various points. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be that ho-hum, no big deal like every other day is, right? Because I'm pushing it. I'm racing. But because it's a race, because there's more excitement, because there's more adrenaline, because the atmosphere is better, because there's other runners there, it's not something that I usually struggle with, And one thing that I will do on race day, and again, this might be something that works for you, it might not, but I change the display on my watch so that I'm not seeing my heart rate, I'm not seeing my pace, I'm not seeing any of those things that might question whether or not I can do this, right? Because if I'm used to running at 10-minute pace at 120 beats per minute, which is pretty standard windows that I'm in for most of my runs, and then on race day I'm running at 8:45 and my heart rate's at 150, which is also pretty standard. I can sit here and tell you that oh, that's no big deal. But if I see that at mile 16 and I feel like I'm struggling a little bit, and it's oh shit, yeah, no kidding, I'm struggling. Look at what my heart rate is. All right, I'd rather be able to look at that afterwards and be damn, look at me go. So I just turn it off so all I can see is my total distance and my total time. So I know I'm at mile 16. I know I've been running for 2.5 hours or whatever it is. But at that point, I'm not going to probably do the math to try to figure out exactly what that means that my pace is. And I certainly have no idea what my heart rate is. So I'm just listening to my body. Back to your tips that I just gave you. Trust your body. Trust what your body's telling you. If my body's telling me that we're good, then we're good. And basically, I just have to fight myself, not to flip the switch to push myself during the race, but I have to fight myself a little bit more to not allow the switch to flip back and kind of give up on myself, which again, is just mentally. So, just trusting that that your training works, that it does work and it will pay off and you'll be able to really push yourself on race day. That's the key. And if this is your first race that you've been doing since you've really gotten into heart rate training, it's a tough one. Admittedly, it's a tough one. But once you see it play out a couple times, once you're like, well, holy crap. Like, I just PR'd and I haven't trained at 2 minutes slower the whole last 6 months, and then I just went out and dropped 2 minutes per mile off my pace and PR'd in this race. Like, wow, it really does work. Once you see that, once you've experienced it, it becomes a lot easier to flip that switch mentally and just trust that all these quote unquote easy miles that we're doing, that they work, that they pay off. And then you mix in a speed workout here and there, and like, butter. So good luck, Barb. Lots of race questions for me today, which makes me think that you got a race coming up. So can't wait to hear how it goes. Hope you have a great race. And that is that, folks. There we go. Look at us. Less than 2 hours, barely over an hour and a half. Look at me getting concise with my answers in my old age. Daggum, I should pat myself on the back. First of all, though, I should pat y'all on the back. Thank you for the questions, because without your questions, we don't have these answers. We don't have questions to answer, I guess. So thanks again for that. What do you think? You like them? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Let me know. @DizRuns on Twitter, @DizRuns on Instagram. You can also send an email to dizruns@gmail.com. You can also head over to the show notes for today, which you can find at dizruns.com/981. Dizruns.com/981. All the memes and GIFs for just about every single question. Certainly got that comment section down at the bottom. We even got a few links mixed in throughout the episode today. You got the tailwind link for Ryan. So yeah, we got some things mixed in there. Check it out if you're so inclined. Dizruns.com/981. You can leave your feedback in the comment section as well. And don't forget, if you want to get your questions featured next month or the next month or the next month, or as long as the podcast is continuing to go, which is no plans on stopping that, there's no plans on getting rid of the Q&A episode. So get yourself into the Facebook group, dizruns.com/Facebook, or just search for the Dizruns Tribe over on Facebook. Click to join. We'll let you in. And, when the question post comes out, do your best or do your worst, however you want to look at it, and we'll answer them for you. Maybe seriously, maybe not so seriously, maybe a little bit of both. But always happy to answer your questions, and not just when it's Q&A time. You can ask a question any old time. We'll answer those as well. But always love seeing all the questions filter in for the Q&A. So thanks to everybody once again who left the questions. And if you enjoyed this episode, if there's a question that maybe you think somebody else might benefit from hearing the answer to, point them to the show notes, or even better, hit that share button on your phone, on your device, whatever you listen to this on right now, and send it over to them. You can send it usually in like text messages, Facebook messages. You can send it however you want, basically. And they can listen in, and appreciate you helping to spread the word. But anyway, before I yammer on and we get to 2 hours, let's just wrap this one up, shall we? Thanks, y'all, for listening. Thanks for the time and the attention. Hope you enjoyed this one. Again, thanks, everybody, for the questions. Until next time, be well. Take good care. Thanks again for listening. And we'll talk soon, all right? See you guys.